But anyways, I was here and I got to meet the emperor as well. And I got to meet all these really important people. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Late Departure. I'm Adam, and as some of you may know, this is my continuing journey to hopefully become an airline pilot sometime in the future after all of this incredibly large amount of studying that I'm doing. Like I said in my last video, so much of what flight training is studying. And, the flying is really fun. The studying is also quite interesting. The stuff, hopefully, if you enjoy it, it's something that you're able to sit down and look at every day and discuss and have fun with. It's something that I do enjoy. I really love getting together, for example, with a lot of my other flight training friends and, talk about a lot of the different problems and things like that. And like trying to figure out how all of this stuff happens in aerodynamics and sorting out Canadian air law and all that kind of stuff. There is a kind of interesting bit of knowledge and just really cool stuff. And if you're really into that, then, flying is probably the right thing for you. And, as I go along and I enjoy this, all I can do is think, this is something that's really fun that I really enjoy doing and want to keep doing. Speaking of fun, though, well, I had a good holiday. I hope all of you had a really wonderful holidays there. I've just been busy studying as usual. It is, all you can do as a flight student is study your best and work really hard. And right now, this is a time I have to buckle down and focus. So even though I do have a lot of videos that I've done, I haven't had enough time to edit them yet. So I have a whole bunch of flight videos that I can't wait to edit and put up. And I know a lot of people have been asking me about publishing videos about how much it costs to do my PPL and CPL and all that stuff. And I will be uploading those videos at some point here. But just over the holidays, I had a chance to catch up with friends and reflect over some of the stuff that I have done in my life up until now as I've been working towards this moment of doing my flight training and becoming a pilot. And it was a long journey to get here. And like I mentioned in some of my previous origin stories videos, I started off working on the ramp, making very little money, ran out of money, decided that I needed to do something at that point to, make some money and also possibly have a backup career. And so during that time, I tried to figure out my options. At that point, I already really loved languages. And if you haven't seen it already, I'll put a link somewhere around here for the last origin story video. And last I left off, I had gone to Japan and I tried to find this girl that I had met in Europe named Yukiko. And I didn't find her, but in coming to Japan, I fell in love with the country. I met some amazing friends like Akane, who you'll also see in this video again, and Yumiko, which is another great friend of mine that I also studied with later on in Korea as well. And, there's so many really cool people that I met. And I think it's really important that, it's always good to have a strong goal, like becoming a pilot or something like that. But along the way, it's also really important to enjoy life and, find something that makes you really happy. And that's what I try to do throughout my 20s, even, my early 30s. I spent most of my time just, doing stuff that made me happy. And that was mostly, traveling, meeting people, doing really cool things, eating amazing foods. But in any case, this video it's an interesting little look at I think by this point, maybe the third or fourth time I'd been to Japan, because since the last video, I enjoyed Japan so much that I went back home. I started studying ancient Japanese and all kinds of like sociolinguistics things and Asian history and science and a whole bunch of things. But really, the Japanese cultural and linguistic contents really excited me a lot, and they were a lot of fun. So I ended up studying at the University of British Columbia with various professors there. One of my favorite professors was a professor named Joshua Mostow, and he is someone who does ancient Japanese literature, translation, and interpretation, and things like that. And I took a few of his classes, and I really kind of fell in love with ancient Japanese literature because, I also really love anime and stuff like that. I'm a super anime nerd and stuff, but the ancient literature also was very, very cool. And so I ended up studying something called The Tale of Genji, which is one of the oldest novels in the world written by someone named Murasaki Shikibu. And this novel was really, really interesting in that, it embodied a lot of what kind of old Japanese culture was. It had a lot of very interesting stories. There was good humor. There was really interesting stuff in it. And I wanted to, as a student at that time, I wanted to do something with it. So I was trying to write like research papers on something called hanagotoba, which is flower words, because flowers in Japan, in ancient Japan, similar to the rest of the world, they have very, very interesting meanings. And, they had all these kinds of special like histories, and it wasn't just like the colors, but certain, and even in Korean, for example, if you hear someone call someone sunflower, it means like they really have eyes for one person. They just kind of watch one person all the time, right? I just found this really fascinating. And as someone who loved languages, languages and words, they all have this etymology or history, which again I find is fascinating, but I digress. So I had been studying the hanagotoba, and I was doing this research, and I ended up going with this professor to Kyoto, and to basically, this was the 1,000-year anniversary of this literature, which is, again, makes it pretty much the oldest novel in history. It was one of the oldest recorded novels. I think the oldest novel written by a woman. It may have even been the oldest novel in Japan. One of the oldest recorded stories that had been around in that part of the world at the time. And so I found it really fascinating. I went to this conference in Kyoto, and you can see here, this is the building that they held the conference in here. It was a very interesting looking building. So before then, I had just gone to Tokyo, and I bought a brand new camera. And so I use this camera. And of course, the quality now looks absolutely terrible. I think at the time, a really nice camera was only shooting something like 2 or 3 megapixels or something like that. And man, that suit looks way too big for me. But in any case, it was a really interesting event because there were some really famous people there. The most famous person who translated the book of The Tale of Genji into English, his name is Royal Tyler. You can see him in this picture over on the far right. And I think, I can't remember if it was in this picture, but the Emperor of Japan, Akihito, is also, I think he may be here somewhere. I can't really see because the quality is so terrible. But anyways, I was here, and I got to meet the Emperor as well. And I got to meet all these really important people. Here's me with my professor, Dr. Mostow. And here we are with Royal Tyler, that, like I said, that really famous translator, interpreter. As someone like myself at the time who was trying to do some translation interpretation of the story, this guy was like Superman. He's someone everyone wanted to kind of look up to, and it was very, very cool. And I even have some props today. So these were these limited edition kind of cufflinks given to all the attendees at the conference. These custom made, I'm not sure if you can see this, these really cool kind of cufflinks. This is Genji himself here. I'm not sure if you can see that. And here is Murasaki, the main female character in Genji Monogatari. Very interesting story. I'm definitely not going to get into that because it is kind of a weird story in a way. But in any case, yeah, really cool conference. Amazing, like, can't believe I get to say that I met the emperor there in Japan. But yeah, it was just a very, very crazy event. And for me at such a young age, it was an honor to meet all those people. But later on, of course, I went on and met Akane. Once again, I'd met her many times before on my trips to Japan. She was an amazing friend, always up to go on some great adventures. I think at this point we were I think this is around Christmas time, so maybe it was around New Year's. We were going to the temple, shaking the bell, clapping, doing the bow and throwing the money and all that kind of stuff there. And I remember at some point we went out into like Edo Bay in Tokyo, and she arranged for some kind of, it was like a booze cruise with a bunch of Japanese businessmen. And I don't know what happened, but at some point we were all wearing neckties around our heads and singing the theme from The Lion King or something, although no one actually knew the words. And Akane was like hanging out the window over the water, and it was just a crazy time. But it was a lot of fun, meeting these friends and observing the various interesting things in Japanese culture there. And the other thing that was a really major highlight was one of my friends who was kind of a language exchange partner from University of British Columbia, because UBC has a connection with Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. His this friend, his name was Goki Koshi, and his family was, and for like hundreds of years had done like this akashiyaki, which is sort of like takoyaki, like the octopus balls, but they're put into a soup. And his family had done this for many, many years. And so I asked if I could help. And of course, they let me come out. And there's me making akashiyaki and putting in the soup and helping them serve it and all that kind of stuff. And they really wanted me to pay me for it, but I was like, no, this is such an amazing experience just to go to all these festivals. And for a few weeks we traveled the country and went to various festivals, and met all kinds of interesting people and saw really cool things. And I'd sit at the front there and I'd scream out, "Irashai, irashai, irashai, akashiyaki wa ikaga deshouka," and which means like come, how would you like some akashiyaki? And like half the people would like run away because they're like, oh man, this guy's really weird. And then like the other half would be like, oh man, there's this white guy speaking really bad Japanese trying to get us to buy some octopus balls or something. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. You can see here, this is another thing. It's like an octopus roll or something. You take some chopsticks and you roll it up with some batter, which is also really cool to make. And I also got a lot of time off, to go wander around and see all the different things, play all the games. This is a goldfish catching and, a classic game in Japan there. And back in Tokyo, I also had the fortune to meet this amazing friend named Yumiko. Yumiko is amazing. She introduced me to her colleagues. And like I said, I also studied with her in Korea as well. And I'll talk about that probably in a future video at some point. Because I spent about 10 years in Korea. It was a huge deal, but I had a lot of fun. Yumiko was amazing. She actually invited me over to her house, so I stayed with her and her family, and we had a lot of really good times there. She was like, her family's just so gracious and so lovely, and they invited me in and took care of me and everything like that. And yeah, I slept in their living room on a futon there. Just absolutely amazing people. And her and her colleagues there, they wanted to do something special with me. So they took me to Hakone. So this is waiting for the train, I think, really, really early in the morning to get to the famous hot springs area called Hakone. And here's us actually there at Hakone. I think this is us taking a picture in front of some big stone or something like that. It was just a very cool place. You could go there, and they had eggs they put in the water, the volcanic water, and they would cook the eggs and you could eat them there. And we also had a rope ride thing in Hakone. It was just so much cool stuff. And we stayed at like some traditional like ryokan, traditional Japanese inn. And, the inns themselves have hot springs in them. It's just such an amazing experience. And I guess sort of just wrapping it up here, it's kind of silly. Please don't go around banging your head on bells. This was, of course, just a joke, but it was just so much fun. I'd go out and we'd have fun and we'd do silly poses and tell jokes. And, this is really one of the best ways to learn language as well, like going to these places, speaking with people. And at this point, I was speaking in Japanese, maybe a little bit of Korean here and there. And I had like some Mandarin Chinese, and like all these languages that I was able to use as I traveled around was just absolutely fantastic. And these are some of the things that have also influenced the direction I'm taking with my pilot career as well. Because right now, I'm considering, where will I go? What will I do? And I'm seriously considering, of course, maybe going to Japan at some point to do some work and do some flying, because they actually, recently, they started hiring some more foreign pilots, which is really cool. But in any case, yeah, this was all a great experience. And actually, when I came back to Vancouver, I was still focused a lot on Japanese and translation. And I got a job in 2010 as one of the translators for the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. So I got like my own personal car, and they were having me drive around, and I was helping doing like translations for, I think, like I was the personal translator for the head coach of like the curling team at one point, and there were a whole bunch of other Japanese media there that I was helping translate, like athlete interviews, and just the connections those people had as well. Like I went to places in Whistler I'd never been before, like the German house and stuff, because one of the coaches, the bobsleigh coaches from Japan, knew the German bobsleigh coach, and so I was actually translating for him up until we got to the place, and until which point he started speaking in German. I was like, holy moly, all these people, they travel around for their passions to do these things, which, is really what being a pilot is also all about, going around meeting new people. And, it's probably one of the most interesting careers in the world if you can get into it. And that's why I'm working so hard towards it. But I had one last thing to show you. This was kind of my pride and joy. All the people, the translators and the media workers and all those people at the 2010 Olympics, we had a thing where we actually went around and collected pins, and we were like trading pins. And I put together quite a pin collection here from the 2010 Olympics of all the different things. And these are just, just various kinds of pins from the time. But among them, because I was working with the Japanese organizations there, I had a bunch of the coveted pins that people outside, like people are waiting outside a convention center, like offering. I had one guy offer me, I think, like $1,000 or something for this pin. It was a limited edition Doraemon pin from, and this is from Asahi TV, because I was helping translate for Asahi TV. I was also helping translate for NHK, which I also got another pin here, another limited edition one that very, very few people have. I think someone else offered me a whole bunch for this one. The biggest one, though, and this one was also limited, that, of course, because people were super obsessed with Pokemon. I guess they're still super obsessed with Pokemon. I think someone offered me like $3,000 for this one. It's a limited edition Pikachu pin from the 2010 Olympics. But yeah, all of these, I just got all of these because I was constantly driving these people around, and they're like, "Oh, do you want some of these special pins?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I had no idea how much they were worth at the time. But now I just have this and attached to my 2010 Olympic. What is this? My neck thing, whatever you call it, the lanyard. In any case, a lot of really great times, and everyone who worked at the Olympics there, they got this token of appreciation, like a little medal thing. But in any case, really great experience. Moral of the story here is, it's really important to have fun as you go along and really enjoy yourself. And even out here, I'm still going out skating on the river, and me and some other flight training students we're planning on maybe going ice fishing and some other stuff while in Winnipeg. It's always important to have fun, always important to keep your eyes on the prize, but also enjoy the journey along the way, because there's a lot of really fun stuff to do and a lot of really interesting things you can do in life there. But I also wanted to share that just because, it's part of my journey. It's part of what brought me here, and part of what made me this now 38-year-old dude who's trying to become an airline pilot. But in any case, thank you all for joining me here on my late departure journey. It's always great having you all. Hopefully you're out flying, having fun, flying safe, keeping the blue side up, as Kelsey from 7-4 Gear says. And remember, it's never too late. See you next time.